and welcome to the American States Assembly podcast. I am your hostess, Tammy, and I decided to start this podcast because I wanted to introduce you all to our men and women of the American State Assemblies. And each episode, we're going to be interviewing each of the state's coordinators and some of their assembly members. And we will be discussing topics such as what is an assembly and why it's such an important part of our lawful American government, and why you should and how you can get involved. So today with me, we have Michelle Ford, who is the state coordinator for California. Michelle is a single mother of 4 children and lives in or on Los Angeles County, California. She is the coordinator for both the California State Assembly and the Los Angeles County Assembly. Michelle came to American Common Law after nearly 10 years of advocacy work within the health freedom movement as a speaker, educator, and organizer, working on such important awareness projects as the hashtag CDC whistleblower and organizing multiple rallies at the CDC. Michelle also served as a board member of both the Vaccine Injury Awareness League and California Health Coalition. Michelle also worked for her city as a civil service commissioner and volunteered for her favorite local community organization, the Culver City Exchange Club. After coming to realize that the political system was broken and rigged, Michelle sought to find the truth about where authority truly comes from and was surprised what she uncovered along the way. So welcome, Michelle, and thank you for agreeing to be the first state for us to interview today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This is super exciting that you're launching this, and I think it's going to make a really big difference to help people along the journey of becoming free and restoring America. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so could you please give our audience who may be hearing this information for the first time today a brief summary, if that's possible, of our lawful American government?
Oh my gosh. So a brief summary would be, I can't speak about it without speaking about a historical context. And the bottom line is, our country was founded as a free union of states. When we broke free from Britain, we became a free union of states. And that free union was born because of living people, right? And as we know, the creator is always greater than the creation.
Right.
And so in order that we can restore America, we have to assume our rightful place in this hierarchy as the authors of the constitutions that ended up, being not only at the, countrywide level, but also at the state level. And that's what we're doing. So we are, because of status correction and learning about this whole process, we're now able to rightfully bring forth those constitutions to the present day such that we can, sort of like a relay race, take the baton and run with it. And that's exactly, as an analogy, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that analogy and I love that explanation. Yeah. So when did you know that there was something very seriously wrong with our country and how it was being governed?
Oh, boy, what a painful process that was. So I came to realize that it was right around 2012. So, about 11 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a bill in California that at that time it was AB 2109. And this was a bill that meant that if it had passed, which it ended up passing, but I became aware of it, and it basically said that I was going to need a doctor's permission to be able to opt my children out of any or all of their childhood, inoculations, their vaccines. And for me, that was a particular interest because my oldest daughter was injured when she was an infant.
Mm.
And so, when you're that quote, 1 in a million family, um, I knew, I needed to be really vigilant and keep my eye on what was going on in that realm. And I was absolutely mortified that there was a bill that was actually going to put a barrier between me
Yeah.
and my parental authority over my child. So that was like the beginning of this sort of like waking up to how bad it is. There were other areas where I had woken up about, starting a journey about healthier food and fluoride and electromagnetic chaos and a bunch of other issues that I had already learned about. But the political realm wasn't one that I was particularly interested in even looking at. Not at all. But that's when I realized, oh no, this is a terrible, terrible thing. And then
Yeah.
when it passed, I actually thought, well, if that's as bad as it's going to get, I guess I can work with it. I'll just educate the doctors, my kids' doctors.
Mhm.
And then, but it just continually got worse and worse over the years to the point of, we all survived this pandemic, which was the Healthy People 2020 agenda.
Right.
I don't even want to go down the rabbit hole of what they're planning for a Healthy People 2030.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's a scary rabbit hole.
yeah, 2020 was mild by comparison. So, you
Yeah,
know,
and I remember when you and I first started to talk, we share a very similar story with how we kind of gotten involved in this process. Because, like you, I mean, I didn't have a vaccine injury child, but we knew of people that had a vaccine injury child. And so we started to question the vaccine schedule. And, and so I became a part of that whole health freedom movement here in New Jersey. And then when we lived in Texas, I was at the state capitol there fighting for our freedoms there as well.
thank you for
And
doing that.
I
Yeah.
think I was in disbelief, just like you. Like, how could this be? Like,
Yeah.
this is supposed to be America, the land of the free. And, if they're taking away a right that's as simple as my choice to choose what kind of medical procedure or product that I'm going to give my child, that's not freedom. And I knew something then and there was seriously wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I got into this process like you, and it just kind of snowballed from there. When I started taking all these different pieces and putting them together, it's like, oh, now this puzzle seems a little bit more clearer. I'm starting to make sense of all of this.
Yes. Yeah. I've often said there's a reason why the sort of symbology of autism is a puzzle piece.
Yeah, right, right, and that is so funny that you say that, but it's so true, and sad at the
Ah.
same time, It's, it can be sad, but, anyway, so, how did you come to find the States Assembly? How did you find that?
Okay, so well, in 2015 is when I really started actually researching, more about what the heck is going on because my senator was on a health committee hearing, and we gathered about 1,700 people all together. But from young all the way to old. We had all these people at the Capitol to oppose a bill, SB 277, and that was in 2015. And my senator said a couple of things that totally woke me up to that there's a whole other level of waking up that I needed to do. Um, so one of the things that she said was, "You guys are just people," and it was like, "What are you talking about? This is a government of the people, by the people, for the people." So I just thought that was a really weird thing for her to say, but I couldn't help but think, well, what else could we be? What else should we be, right? Because she said it in a condescending tone. And then the other thing that she said was, "You don't own your kids." And it was like shocking to hear those words because I never, ever, ever would have used the word own to describe my relationship to my kids. So then I was like, oh, well, that's weird, But then I thought, well, wait, if I don't, right? If I was just gonna, you know, consider that as a truth, if I don't, well, then who does? That was the question that I was left with. And I realized that she knew something that I didn't know. And I was determined to figure out what the heck it was that she was talking about. And so I started on this journey of, reading a bunch of different, alternative authors and stuff like that. And, all the amazing, amazing authors. And I went to lectures and read, signed up for newsletters and just was kind of open to this idea that we haven't been told the truth about everything. And so that's what I discovered. I discovered that, holy smokes, there's something else going on here. And I had heard about, people trying to get free and becoming, quote, sovereign citizens along the way. And of course, there was a lot of trouble that followed these people, and that was quite a bummer for them. So I never embarked on it. But then also in 2015, right, I met this woman named Nancy. She held some kind of a position in our local Republican Party. I don't remember what her position was, but she agreed with health freedom fighters about defeating that bill. So she and I exchanged phone numbers, and fast forward to I guess it was 2020, because it was right after the pandemic. It was either 2020 or 2021. I can't remember now. I think it was 2020. Shoot. Anyway, something like that. I'll have to look it up. She contacted me after having kind of lost touch with her. And she told me that California was assembling. And by the time that I heard that, I had enough knowledge to know what she was talking about. And I was like, yes, that's what needs to happen, is the people need to assemble to get their government back, right? We need to restore our We the People government, because we didn't have access to it anymore. And so I knew what she was talking about. It was in the what I didn't know that I didn't know until she kind of spoke it into reality for me. And then I also realized at that moment that when she told me that I would need to get my status corrected, I was like, okay, wait a minute. It felt like a no-brainer, but I was like, the one thing missing from all those other people was that they were not assembling. So, they were getting in trouble for being free people without a lawful summoning authority. And so when I found out that the assembly fiduciary and the head of state were the lawful summoning authority, it was like, no brainer. I needed almost no time to think about it. Okay. So, anyway, so that was really it. I hope that makes sense. And by the way, I lost your audio. So, I mean, your video. So I hope you're still there.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had lost my connection for a little bit, but I'm back.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I hope everything's all right on the technical end.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just gonna go with this, right? Um, but anyway, so I guess my next question to you is, how long did you research before you decided to correct your political status?
Okay, so I guess I would have to start with 2015. So that was really when I started the journey about waking up to the fact that we didn't have a We the People government anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But once I found out about the assembly, it was like just a couple of days. I didn't really need much time because of all of the research that I had already done.
Yeah, and probably the experience, right? The experiences that you had with seeing your freedoms being removed little by little with these
Mhm.
bills that they were passing. Yeah.
Yeah, that slow boil effect was very loud to me. By the time I found out about the assembly, um, I already had a lot of research under my belt and knew that this is the answer.
Yeah.
And it's in the Declaration of Independence, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a lot of our founding documents. When
Uh-huh.
you actually look at them and you read them and you start to study it, instead of just breezing through it like we did when we were in school, right, as kids. When you're an adult and you actually read through it, you start to really fully understand what those words in those documents really mean.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really fully understood what a government for, of, and by the people really meant, you know? And so, yeah, that was an eye opener for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But unlike you, I didn't quickly correct my status because I was waking up to a lot of different things. And so I was really not quick to trust because I was like, well, who is this Anna von Reitz lady? And how do I know she's not trying to swindle me? So I had to, read a little bit more. The book that really got me, and I made sure that it was a book that wasn't, she didn't write it or she wasn't recommending it. At least it wasn't a book that I, had found when I was researching her that she was recommending. But it was called Fruit from a Poisonous Tree by Mel
Oh,
Stamper.
Melvin Stamper.
Yeah.
Yes. Such a
So,
great book. I mean,
yeah.
not, it's sort of like
Well, an eye opener book with a
eye-opener,
lot of facts, a
very humbling
lot
book.
of facts, listed in there and
Uh-huh.
just laid out for you. So I would highly recommend anybody to read that book. But that was the one that, really hit home for me and said,
Mhm.
wow, okay, now I get what's going on. So let me go back to this Anna von Reitz lady and read a little bit more of what she has to say. And so that was kind of my process. So it took me, a few months after just receiving the information. Took me about 2 months to probably read that book. It was a hard book to read.
It's hard. Well, it's hard to have that level of information
Yeah.
coming at you
Yeah.
when, you're just starting to wake up. It's like very confronting because it feels so huge. But
Right.
there's also Fruits of Graft by
Mm.
Harley Schlanger.
Oh, wow.
There's Creature from
Jekyll Island.
Jekyll Island. I
Yeah.
was going to say Black Lagoon, but I was like, no, not that one.
Well, it should have been from the Black Lagoon.
I mean, there's so many incredible books out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, William Cooper,
Oh, yeah.
Behold a Pale
Yeah.
Horse. I mean, there's just like, I mean, and then
Yeah.
also some that also came along my awareness on my journey. Um, uh, Me and Lee by Judith Berry Baker.
Ooh, I didn't know that one. Haven't heard
Whoa.
that
And
one.
also, so Me and Lee, and then the other one was Dr. Mary's Monkey.
Yeah, I've never heard that one either. I'm going to
Well,
have to add these to my list.
just really quick, okay, because there are these two books, two different authors. What you don't know is that they're parallel stories
Oh, wow.
happening at the same time in the same place in New Orleans, okay?
Mm.
But stories told from two different perspectives that have two crazy revelations. I don't want to ruin it, but you really, if you're a reader like I am, grab both of those books and read them because they work together like sprockets. You would have no idea what becomes revealed in that book.
Wow.
Incredible. And actually, I was reading those because I was curious. Um, I picked up Me and Lee because I was curious about Lee Oswald, as I was curious about the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy.
Yeah. As a lot of us are. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I was curious about Oswald. And so I read Me and Lee
Mm.
by Judith Berry Baker because I wanted to know she had claimed to be a mistress of
Wow.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Hmm.
And anyway, I'm not going to ruin it for you because these are true stories.
Yeah.
And so to read them, you know, to read two books from two different perspectives happening in the same city at the same time,
Yeah. Wow.
mind blown. Drop the mic. Okay. So check them out. I know that has nothing to do with the assembly, but in a way it does.
Yes.
In a way
Yeah.
it does, because you can't get to this level of awakening without recognizing all the different ways that we've been completely and totally manipulated into believing the deception,
Right.
believing the lies of this sort of matrix existence, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, why did you decide to step up and be your state's coordinator?
Oh, wow. Okay. So earlier when I was talking about Nancy, um, she asked me to. She was the state coordinator at that time.
Mhm.
And then she said, "Hey, I'm going to be taking on, I forget what other roles she was going to be taking on. But then she said, so, you know, I would recommend you to the Federation. You would have to be vetted and all of that. So the rest would be up to you. But the seat would otherwise be somewhat vacant. So if you want, I would be willing to put your name in the ring, I guess." And I was like, gosh, I don't even really know what the work entails.
Mhm.
Let me kind of sleep on it, think on it. I don't want to get in over my head, you know.
Right.
And I prayed on it,
Mhm.
and I decided to say yes to that. And then, went through the vetting process and all of that, and was, the whole vetting with the Continental Marshals and all of it, and was ultimately approved. So here I am.
Yeah, that's great, and doing the great work for California. I think that they're very lucky to have you.
Thank you. We have our challenges, so
Yes.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, of course. And I think that, this country, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do these podcasts so that our country could see all the wonderful men and women that are stepping up into these roles and being the trailblazers, really, of rebooting, if you would, our lawful American government. So, it's exciting times. And, like I said, I think they're lucky to have you. Clearly you are a fighter for freedom, given your background and everything that you've been through. So I think, God was, looking out and saying, I need a good warrior for me that's going to step up and be this representative for California. And it's a huge state. So, and you're in Los Angeles to boot. So, that's not an easy task to take on. So, kudos for you for stepping up and doing that. So
Thank
tell
you.
us some of the initiatives that your state is currently working on.
Initiatives. Well, okay, so California, it almost feels like we're starting from scratch. We've had several challenges over the last
Mhm.
couple of years, and we're finally at this place where it feels like we have somewhat of a clean slate, if you will.
Mhm.
So our uh, top of mind for literally for the rest of this month is to get those initial notices done. Some of those notices were never done, and
Mm.
there was a time up until, gosh, November of 2022,
Mhm.
there were multiple coordinators, and so as a result, we divided up our tasks. And
Yeah.
so one of the tasks that I didn't take on was attending the weekly countrywide coordinator calls where we
Mhm.
would get instructions from the Federation. And so I was unaware of some of the important things that had to get done that never got done.
Mm.
So it feels like we're starting from scratch.
Yeah, you're a little behind.
Oh, yeah. When now that I'm the only coordinator, I'm attending the calls. every week. And if I can't attend live, I listen to the playback religiously, so that I'm keeping up to date on what needs to get done.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to fall behind ever again, number one. Thank God. And then number two, so top of mind is getting all those notices out. And then in addition to that, we're also beginning a really deep dive into some research of our founding documents here. You know, California was acquired after the U.S. had a conquest over Mexico during the Mexican-American War. Or wait, I think that's what the title of the war was. So please forgive me if I got that wrong. So California was included in a very large territory that was acquired, and ultimately the Treaty of Cahuenga ended that, or sorry, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And then we have this Treaty of Cahuenga, which is more specific to California. And
Interesting. And we don't really ever learn about these treaties, when we're in school, and I think that that's purposely done. I feel like, at least for the students in California, this is an important part of your history that you should know. And the fact that you are now uncovering a lot of this lost history, right? It's really exciting. It's exciting.
It actually is
exciting. Some of our listeners who are, historian geeks are going to love to hear more about that. That's some exciting information.
Oh, there are so many awesome resources that our assembly has found because of doing like this deep dive, online, doing searches, really trying to get to the very beginning for our state.
Yeah.
Because you can't create a government body without living people taking a stand. Right. And so we've been doing this, kind of search to find those original documents. As you know, we've got to pick up the ball from the last time that there were the living people, and bring that forth, like this relay race I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So it is super exciting right now. And thankfully, it feels like there's somewhat of a revival going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, for everybody, there's a great website that I found it's archives.gov/milestone-documents/list. And on there, it's called the Milestone Documents. And it goes starting way back with the Revolution, the American Revolution, right?
Yeah.
All the way, all the treaties, the, very serious defining Supreme Court decisions, civil rights stuff. I mean, like it goes all the way to a more, more current history. Not all the way current, but because we haven't really had.
When we come across websites like that, it's like a gold mine.
It is a gold mine. And we haven't had many, milestones happening lately.
Right.
But
or milestones that we're proud of anyway.
Right. But that particular website is fascinating to get sort of the big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, for your research buffs, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. That's great stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So tell us why you believe that our founding fathers established a government for us originally that included a separation of church and state.
Okay, so here's the thing. Our founding fathers didn't actually do that. There was one sentence in one document, and I wish I could remember the name of the document. And it was either James Madison or Thomas Jefferson who spoke of this separation, but it wasn't widely accepted actually until much, much, much later. In fact, I don't think it came about until the 20th century.
Hmm.
So our
Interesting.
founding fathers actually founded this country on biblical principles, because
Yeah.
the Bible is not a religious doctrine, unlike what we've been taught all of our lives. And if you go back and you read the founding documents, checking out the arguments that happened in the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers and all
Mhm.
of that, those congressional notes and all that stuff, or not congressional notes, but, the Continental Congress, I guess
Right.
it would be congressional notes.
Yeah.
There were, I mean, there were huge debates about certain issues. And at the end of the day, they knew that without the blessings of God, this country would never be successful. And so, and that really started because of the Northwest Ordinance. They too knew, the Pilgrims knew that without God's blessings, they were not going to succeed. They were not going to
Right.
survive winter, and they
Yeah.
needed to partner with the natives and the,
Do you
the people on the pagans, quote pagans on the ship, right? So on the
right.
Mayflower, yeah.
Do you believe, like, I know that our founding fathers, created our, basically our government with with God as the, backbone behind it.
Uh huh.
Um,
Yeah,
but I
the
guess
cornerstone. Yeah.
yeah, but and you can see that, like, I know that we talk about how the 10 commandments played pretty much a big role in the construction of our government, um,
Hmm.
with morals, values, and ethics. But, you know, the church is, because different people have different religions, right?
Correct. Uh huh.
And so, I think that they wanted to keep a separation of a specific church, not necessarily, somebody's faith in what higher, in their higher, that we all agree that there was a higher power. The
Hmm.
three major religions anyway believe that, um, but that there was no one specific church that was head of, or influencing, I guess, the government.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yes, absolutely. So just the word church, just that word alone actually deserves an in-depth study, because the journey of learning what a church um, is also a big deal, because society and life experience has taught us what we perceive a church to be.
Hmm.
Okay, but actually, there is something called a church, not as it relates to religion, but as it relates to people assembling,
Right.
right? Okay. And so it is a study worth doing. Everybody listening should actually take the time to go and learn what actually is a church,
Mhm.
because what we've been dealing with, right? This entire Roman system, this
Mhm.
whole commercial Roman system,
Yep.
this sort of cosmos, if you will, this world that is a world, in and of itself. Not only is it a jurisdiction, but it's actually a world, and frankly, that is a religion.
Right.
The Roman commercial system,
Yeah.
is a world in and of itself, and it is a when people put commerce before God, that is a
Yes.
religion.
Well, the interesting thing is, I'm just going to share this really quickly with you. Um, when COVID had hit, and, we were told that we had to wear a mask, we had to stay in our house, we had to stay 6 feet apart, and this nonsense.
Horrible,
You know,
horrible.
that was when I started saying to my husband, we got to get involved in politics. Like, we can't be out and not be involved now. We got to, let's go. We got to get involved now. So he and I went around, because we were going to start with being part of our county committee, right?
Okay.
So we were going around to our neighbors, which it was interesting because we only lived here at the time for, I don't know, 5-6 months before we decided to, get involved in politics. But we had to go around and get signatures. And when we were knocking on our
Like
neighbors'
a
doors,
petition type of a thing.
yeah, we needed to get like the support of our neighbors. We were, going to be running on the conservative ticket, Republicans. And and I was really surprised because there was a few people's houses, I should say, quite a bit of people that opened their doors and were wearing masks in their own house. And we weren't even like face to face at their door. My husband and I was trying to be respectful, and we walked, we rang the doorbell and walked down the steps and stood like, probably was like 8 feet between us. And we just were talking and trying to be respectful, and the one guy, everybody wanted to talk about the vaccine. I mean, everybody did.
Right. They're
And,
like,
and I was
which one did you get? Which one did you get? It's like, who branded you?
Yeah, I was trying really hard to stay away from that topic. I wanted to stay neutral and just, introduce ourselves and get the signatures. But this one particular guy was like, oh yeah, my daughter has been trying to get me in to get my shot, and they're so backed up, and all I said to him was, and he was being really friendly, right, when we were talking initially, and all I had to say to him, Michelle, was, well, that might be a blessing in disguise that you can't get an appointment, because I hear that there's all sorts of side effects from these vaccines and they haven't really properly been tested. And he like stopped, paused for a second, put his arms, like he like, crossed his arms. And he said to me, well, I believe in vaccines. And I said, oh, okay, that's great. I didn't know what else to say, but I thought for that moment was like an eye opener for me, because I learned that vaccines were then people's religion, right? Like they're bowing
100%.
down to this industry.
100%.
And I'm just like, wow, just seeing the look on his face change and crossing his arms, his body language, and like, well, I believe in vaccines. And I'm like, oh, well, I believe in God.
Yeah, doctors have somewhat become priests of, a particular mindset, right?
Yeah, pharmakia.
People are like this to their doctors, like they're some sort of gods, But when I learned what a prescription is, that's when I was like, oh, just the word prescription. I was like, yeah, so that's another homework assignment for your listeners.
Wow.
Today.
Yeah, I'm learning all sorts of things from you today, Michelle.
Yeah, go look up the word prescription.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm like, oh, no wonder, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And when you actually look up the word pharmakia, it actually means black magic.
Yeah. And that's in the Bible too, right?
Right. All in the Bible.
All of the warnings are there. They're all in there in that law book.
You just have to read the book.
But as long as they keep calling it religious, then people don't want to read it, because they're like, oh, that's not my religion. That doesn't apply to me, right?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So since a lot of us are waking up and realizing that we've been deceived on many fronts, what are your thoughts about the differences in the various versions of the Bible? And do you think there is some deception taking place with the translations in these different versions?
Ooh, gosh. Okay, so I should probably preface by saying that I'm still a student. So I would not purport to say anything like, oh, I'm a Bible scholar or something like that, because I'm not. I'm still a student. And right now I'm reading 3 different Bibles, but one of them is called the One Year Bible, and it's a New Standard Version, I think. It's either New Standard Version or New International Version. I can't remember. And then I also have a King James, which I know isn't technically our Bible because it's post, the migration across the Atlantic of the Mayflower. And the Geneva Bible. So what I try to do is, and I'm also using the blueletterbible.org to do
Yes.
word searches and stuff. But the problem with that site is that they don't have the Geneva Bible online. So when you search, you can search other versions of the Bible, but ironically, there's no Geneva Bible, which is the Bible for our land and soil jurisdiction, right? So to answer your question, yes, I definitely believe that Bibles are altered and changed. And I don't know that there's, in every case, there's ill intent, because we know in our own lives, we know words we're not allowed to say anymore.
Right.
Because
And
if
that
you,
they keep changing the meanings to different words too.
right.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to give these people the benefit of the doubt, is that they're just trying to keep up with modern language so that they don't lose people. There's certain words,
Well,
if you say them, you're just totally outcasted nowadays. But
well, I want to touch on something that I find very interesting, because when I was sharing something with one of my Christian friends recently, and I was trying to talk to them about the American state assemblies, they brought this to my attention, and I thought, I don't think I studied this part of the Bible, and I got to look into this,
Mhm.
and I want to read this so that our listeners can hear this, because, like you, I use the Blue Book, where it can compare side by side. And
Oh,
on
cool.
my app, I have the King James Version, and I have the New International Version. And
Okay.
it's very interesting. So this is Romans 13.
Oh, Romans
Okay.
13. Right.
And so I'm going to read 1 through 8. Okay. So it says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from the fear of one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes. For the for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Now that's not the whole chapter, but I'm just going to stop
No.
there.
Yeah, we could talk for a whole hour just about 1 through 8. Okay, so this is super important, because here's the thing. That is actually true. That's the truth. God does ordain governments into existence, but that Romans 13, I think, is the most intentionally used verse in the Bible to justify evil and wicked governance over free people.
Now,
Okay.
I want to read to you, though, okay? Because I happened to find the Geneva Bible on. I have the app, but I don't think it's the 1560 version. It's the 1599 version.
99.
So
Okay.
I want to read to you what that says.
Okay.
Okay, so it says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God.
Right.
Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves condemnation. For magistrates are not to be feared for good works, but for evil. Wilt thou then be without fear of the power? Do well, so shalt thou have praise of the same. For he is ye minister of God for thy wealth. But if thou do evil, fear. For he beareth not the sword for naught. For he is the minister of God to take vengeance on him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must be subject, not because of wrath only, but also for conscience sake. For this cause ye pay also tribute, for they are God's ministers, applying themselves for the same thing. Give to all men, therefore, their duty. Tribute to whom ye owe tribute. Custom to whom custom. Fear to whom fear. Honor to whom ye owe honor. Owe nothing to any man, but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law.
So good. So I'm glad that you did a side by side and read the two different versions, because I think hardly anybody reads the Geneva Bible unless they're on an assembly and they know that it's part of their public duty to do that. But this particular issue has been, I think this actually is touching an issue that I didn't even know we were going to talk about, which is, there's trouble on the assembly. And when I see that there is a divide or I don't want to say misunderstanding, because I know what understanding means, but like a miscomprehension of what it is that the assembly is called to do. Now, right. Assemblies are called by God's divine grace to restore our government. We cannot have assemblies that are not morally upright.
Correct. Yeah.
We cannot have people assembling who don't put God in first place.
Absolutely.
And that's not religious doctrine. That is natural law.
Right.
It's natural law, the laws of nature, and nature's God. And when people don't get that and they think that what you're doing is forcing them into a quote religion, then they're missing the point, and they're actually inviting eternal judgment onto their own lives, because
right.
There's a reason why honoring God is the first commandment. God must be in first place in every word and in every deed, because otherwise the assembly will never be blessed. And you know what? I am an eyewitness to that. Our assembly has had stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block. I think everybody across the country is aware that California can't seem to get their act together. And this is the issue.
Yeah.
It's the issue between people that want to uphold God's virtue and God's law and assemble with people that get that. Because otherwise we're never going to get the blessings. And then trying to work alongside people who are like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm free, we the people, which is true. Everyone gets to be free people, but that's the difference between people that correct their status and just go on about life, going to be free state nationals, as opposed to those who volunteer to roll up their sleeves and do the work that God called them to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's difficult for some people if they have lived their life or most of their lives and they don't believe in a higher power. I had neighbors that I lived near whose husband was identified as atheist.
Which is ironically a religion.
Right. And so they kind of believe in the science, right? So, my response is, well, God and science are one and the same. You could call it science, you could call it God, but at the end of the day, it's one and the same, because it's an energy force. And everything was created with an energy force, and that energy just didn't come out of nowhere from nothing, And so, I would just encourage people to, look a little deeper there and, know that you could call it whatever you want. You could call it energy. You could call it, you could call it God. You could call it the creator, whatever you want to call it, but it does exist. And whether or not you believe in that, that's just, the way it is. And that people, I have found that even those people who believe in, they like to call it science, and I'm a big science geek. I love science. My degree is in science. So, but I would, people that I know that follow the science, right? They do have morals. I just don't think they like to connect themselves with calling it a religion or believing in God, because there's, unfortunately, it's just this whole indoctrination that's taken place, really to pull us away from God.
Yeah.
I think that that's part of it. And then on the contrary side, I was questioning somebody's religion. It's one of the major religions that we all know of. There was some things happening within the religion that was really weighing very heavily on my heart. And so when I was questioning it and bringing it to their attention, they actually came out and said, well, I will stab anybody who wants to question my faith. And I just thought, wow, like religion and faith are not the same thing,
They're not.
And so that's also another misconception. And I was really shocked and taken back by that, because I thought, wow, if you follow the word of God and you follow Jesus, that wouldn't have been a response coming out of your mouth. I was really shocked. But,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work, Michelle, to do in this area. And I really pray every day that we get there, because we've been subverted on so many different levels, that it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of deep diving into yourself, self-reflection, to start coming out of this funk that this world is in, really.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just grateful. I mean, I know for me, we have a lot of great assembly people in our assembly. And, I meet really good people on this path all the time.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to keep the faith that we're on the up and up. People are waking up. They're starting to read their Bibles more. I got one of my Christian friends that I do a homeschool co-op with. She has a daughter that, I think two older children that go to Christian schools, colleges. And she said that a revival is, they've had like ongoing, like services and mass and worshiping for, that's picking up the momentum at their colleges. And so
Yeah, isn't
that's
that Kentucky or something? I heard a little bit about something going on,
yeah,
a
I
big
don't know
revival.
specifically where her children go, but she just had mentioned that, and I thought that is so good to hear, so I think it's happening, and it's just working at it little by little.
Yeah, very good. Well, and I wanted to touch on that word science that you brought up earlier, because there's also conscience, right? Which is the word con and then science together,
Mm,
right? And
right.
then the etymology of the word con is very interesting, because it means both with, like with science, right?
Mhm.
Or it could also mean like without argument. It could also
Mm.
mean it could also mean a con game, like conning somebody. It could also mean against. So
Right.
it's really interesting depending on the context. There's
Mhm.
that word con, okay? Depending on the context, our creator gave us consciousness, which isn't possible. You can't have conscience, right, without being conscious. So these people who are solely stuck in a paradigm of science are unwilling to look at the other side of this coin.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that the truth is, um, the truth is we got our consciousness and our conscience, right? Our Holy Spirit is the conscience.
Right.
And our conscience comes from our Creator. Now, by the way, so does science.
Yeah.
But the point being is that I think the parable is that the pot didn't create itself. There was a potter, right?
Yes.
So all credit goes to the Creator, our Creator, and it's all in the law book, the laws of nature, and nature's God. And so,
Amen to that.
yeah. So I don't disparage, and clearly neither do you. Don't disparage people that are on their learning journey, waking up to this. But the
Right.
fact of the matter is, there is one Creator. There is one that gets credit for all of it. Gets the glory, gets the praise, gets the due respect.
Yeah.
So I have utmost humility for honoring God, because without him and his divine orchestration of every moment, of every
Yes.
hair on our heads, right? It's like amen to that. Well, I know Anna says don't say amen. I'm having a hard time getting rid of it. But
We still have
so
some
be
old
it.
habits that we can't break.
So
I
be it.
I also wanted to share this because I can remember having a conversation with a hairdresser that I met down in Texas, and I believe he was part African American and part Puerto Rican. And we were just talking about ethnicities. He came from the north. I think he was originally from Michigan, and I forgot how we got on this topic, but he was talking about feeling less than because of his ethnicity, right? Like, because where he grew up, the blacks and the Puerto Ricans were fighting with each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he was both black and Puerto Rican. And he said that he had struggled for quite some time, feeling confident about himself, and that people would put him down. And I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, um, God created you. So who else needs to judge whether you're good enough or not? I mean, you're
Right.
good enough for him, and apparently, your sperm made it to the egg and fertilized the egg. It was strong enough to do that out of
Right.
how many, thousands
Millions.
of other ones, right? So, just trying to get him to see something that, like he didn't think of before. And I just think we're all created under, our almighty creator. We are created wonderfully, uniquely under him,
Mm-hmm.
and that we all are here to love and appreciate each other for our differences, and just come together. And like we talk about with our assemblies, right? We're assembling together,
Mm-hmm.
and just appreciating each other and what we have.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the world has taught us to basically divide ourselves because of, divide based on our differences. In fact,
Yeah.
I remember in kindergarten learning how to sort the squares from the circles, from the lines. It was all about dividing everything up. And I think that when you're indoctrinated into a dumbing down system, sorting like that, we get trained to sort
Yeah, to put things
ourselves.
into these boxes.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
and frankly, that's kind of a crime. Not kind of a crime. I think it is a crime. I think they manipulate they use our natural abilities against us,
Yeah.
because
Right.
we get indoctrinated so young. I mean, I use this analogy on my classes on Thursday mornings, when I went from being a daughter to being a person,
Right.
when I was learning about nouns, right?
Right.
My teacher
Right.
said, "I'm a person, you're a person. I'm a person, you're a person. We are nouns, person, place, or thing." And I was like, "Ooh, cool," Ever since then, I thought this thing was a person,
Yeah.
this fake dead entity, right? This title thing.
Yeah,
I
they
had no
forgot
idea.
to tell us that point though.
Right. They forgot to say that there's 160 plus pages at the law library about what person means,
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
just happened, by the way, to find another definition that said it was like stemming from the Latin language, right? And saying that
Mhm.
person means a mask that somebody wears.
Yeah, like persona.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I thought, how funny is that? Because they forced everybody to wear a mask during the pandemic.
Right. They sure did.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I want to make sure that we're staying on time here. And I have two more questions that I want to ask you before we end. What does it mean to you to be sovereign? And we hear that. I know that I started hearing that a lot more in church recently.
Uh-huh.
And, and I love it. I think that it's, so wonderful that the pastor is using that word to familiarize people with it.
Uh-huh.
But we also have heard of, hate speech, talking about sovereign citizens, which we know is just an oxymoron. And it's just, a dirty word that's derogatory. So, but what does it mean to be sovereign? Could you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, well, first I have to give all credit to God, because he's really the one true sovereign. But in terms of what it means here in this 3D realm on this earth, so to my comprehension is that to be truly sovereign, first of all, you have to expatriate from any titles, right? And by the way, even a state citizen, when they're acting in their capacity as a state citizen, they are not, quote, sovereign, because they may have a role like a juror, or they're an
Right.
elected title, right? A
Mhm.
position of some sort, or appointed, right? So,
Or a responsibility to their government, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, serving in a responsibility fashion, so to speak. But there, my comprehension is that anyone who has taken ownership, over their own being, their own body, their own property, and in addition to that, owning their own land. Like, I know Anna has mentioned that our bodies are out. Once we do our paperwork, we own, this is our land, right? We actually dwell within this thing,
Right, right,
right?
right. This is the temple of which he gave us to do his work.
Right.
And it's ours.
It's ours. This is my land, right? This is me. This is my property. So, but I also comprehend that it would be, to be recognized by others as being, quote, sovereign. Then there's like land patent would be, um, an element of fulfilling that intent to be sovereign, right?
Right.
So, I haven't done a huge deep dive on that, but I did do a little bit when I was starting my journey about learning about land patents.
Yeah.
And that's when people can be, quote, electors. They have certain other authorities when that's the case. So,
Right. Well, because then they're officially a landowner, right? And that was one of the requirements within our government, if you wanted to be an elector, right?
yeah, yeah. In fact, of course, based on the gosh, which one was it? The Northwest Ordinance, I guess. Oh, did I say Northwest Ordinance earlier when I meant to say Mayflower Compact? I think I accidentally did. If I did, I apologize. I was talking about the Pilgrims, and I think I accidentally sent the Northwest Ordinance. But the Northwest
The
Ordinance,
other one.
the other one, when they were going west and taking on the additional territory.
Right. 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 Right.
And they talk about free male inhabitants, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, inhabitant has a whole other word, a whole other rabbit hole to know about in terms of statutes and codes. And we don't speak code around here, but yeah,
Yeah, no secret codes around here.
no secret codes, no secrets, like no.
All right. So, another thing that the last question that I have for you is, do you recommend? I know you kind of hit on a few of those books, but just one last time, do you recommend any other resources outside of Anna's website to anyone who wants to dig deeper, to find more proof to what we're talking about, and to get more answers?
Wow. Okay. So, gosh, I wish I had prepared like a book list for this question. This is like an awesome question, but I would start with, of course, Anna's articles, but really, seriously, everybody needs to get into a Bible study, a great Bible study, because it's so challenging when you're first. It's even challenging for me, and I've been reading it now for a couple of years, not consistently. For consistently, it's been roughly 6 months, but
Yeah, I
um,
find there's not enough time in my day to read everything I need to read,
I
to try to get brought
know.
up to speed. So,
Well, I would say in addition to, of course, the Bible, and that should be a daily thing, but you should treat the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the three constitutions, right? Because you got to know our first federal constitution, and then the British territorial and the Papist municipal, so that you know the different jurisdictions.
yeah.
Um, and then people really should study the Mayflower Compact. They should check out the Northwest Ordinance. They should check out the Ten Commandments, and what else? Now, in terms of like books, like that authors have written,
Mhm.
I know we already talked about a few earlier today. Incredible, incredible. Um, um, Gosh, what else?
Well, I know
I
one for me is, it's not necessarily, I don't think it's a book. I actually ended up finding it online, and it was by an anonymous judge that's calling him or herself Judge Dale, and it's called The Great American Adventure.
Oh, cool.
That was really eye opening
I'm gonna
because
write
that
that down.
was written by a judge. So, retired judge. And like I said, they're keeping themselves anonymous.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? I realize that there's another thing I want to add, and that's the laws of peace, the law of peace,
Nice.
which isn't a book. It's actually, I think it's an army manual.
Ah,
But because we've declared peace on the land, people have to comprehend what it means to be, governing
right.
when we've declared peace. How do you operate in peace? Uh, that's important. Also, the treaties, right? The
Right.
Treaty of Ghent, the
Yep.
Treaty of Paris.
Hmm.
It would be helpful for people to read the Magna Carta.
And do
Um,
you have any resources as far as, do you think by them doing a DuckDuckGo search that they'd be able to come up with these documents all on their own, or is there like an archive uh, website that they can go to get to those documents, or are all those documents listed on the TASA website?
I'm pretty sure they're all there. Don't quote me, because a lot of the stuff I started studying before I found the assembly. So I'm not totally sure if they're on the TASA website. And if anyone from the IT team is listening to this playback, can you double check and make sure that they're on there? That would be awesome, because I'm not sure. And then, of course, that website that I gave earlier with the milestone documents, those are really, really great for, looking at our country as a whole, and learning the different milestone documents that have shaped our country. And then there's that point, you know, right after the Civil War, as the you know, that mercenary conflict, not war, was kind of coming to an end, and all the ways that, you know, that was kind of a gateway drug when they converted everybody, you know, into 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, or citizens of the United States. Sorry, you know, that was like this horrible, horrible gateway that ultimately led to House Joint Resolution 192, right? It just is a whole thing.
Yeah, it just snowballed from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just put up, for anybody who would like to get onto the American State Assembly's website, it's tassa.americanstatenationals.com. And as we had our show going, I also had the website up for the California State Assembly. So people can go on to that site to get more information about California's.
And you know what? It's .org. So just in case, it's .org. TASA, TASA.AmericanStateNationals.org. Now I'm realizing maybe they have that URL and it would reroute to the site anyway, but I don't know.
All right, I just fixed it.
Yay. Okay, good.
All right, and so thank you so much, Michelle, for, you know, being brave and coming on to do this first podcast with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I had so much fun doing this interview with you. And, you know, for those of you who want to get in touch with Michelle and want to learn more about the California State Assembly, you could reach her. Let me see, I'm going to put her email up there too. So that's her email address is california-coordinator@mail.americanstatenationals.us.
Yes.
So reach out to her. They're looking to get more people back on the land and soil and start working our lawful American government again that is for, of, and by the people. So, all right. So till next time, Michelle, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. And I really, you know, I think you're onto something pretty awesome here.
Thank
And so
you.
thank you for, you know, stepping up and turning your idea into a reality and giving state coordinators, you know, a platform that we can, you know, point people to in terms of getting information. And I see a bright future for this project.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to the next state coordinator. So, all right. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.